All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our January Opportunities in HIT session. We are kicking off the spring semester, the very first day of classes today. So thank you for being here. We have joining us Patty Seymour, who is the HIMSS administrator over at Mayo Clinic, and we're just thrilled to have her. If you are joining for credit, for course credit today, I would ask that you be sure you've included your full name. So want to be sure you get credit. You can do that by clicking next to your name and re-entering that, or just enter your name in the chat. So I'm sure to know that you're here. But Patty, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm just delighted to be here today. Hopefully I won't bore you. Hopefully I've been in HIM for a really long time, so hopefully it's not, again, I don't want to bore you. Hopefully, the great thing about HIM is that it's been ever evolving. And when I joined HIM 30 some years ago, it's not the same. It's not the same as it is today. So much has changed. So let's just get started, and I'll move to the next slide. This is a little bit about me. I am the HIMSS administrator for Mayo Clinic, as Charlene shared. I've been with Mayo Clinic for 24 years, which is hard to believe. It's time that has gone very fast. And my first job in HIM, back in the day, it was known as medical records, was in 1982. I had was my first job, and it was a summer job. And at the time, we thought we were pretty swift. We were actually taking paper reports and charting them on the nursing floors real time. So that gives you an idea of how far this industry and this profession has come. We thought we were pretty swift back then, taking stuff to the floors. So a little bit about my education. I started off as what they call an ART, which converted over to an RHIT. I got my associate in applied science in medical record technology. That's what it was called back then, at Tidewater Community College, which is in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And years later, I went back to school and got my Bachelor of Science in Health Information Management from the University of Cincinnati. It is a great program. It's an RHIT to RHIA conversion program. So as long as you're an RHIT, you can, for the most part, be accepted into that program. And then a few years later, I decided I wanted to pursue my master's degree. Thought about a lot of different opportunities, but with HIM really on the cusp of so much technology and so much changing in the technology field, I opted for my Master's of Science in Information Management. It was very challenging. I got that through Arizona State University. And at the time, I wondered why I did that to myself, but now I'm very, very grateful. I felt like it was a very value-added program for my career. Let's keep going. So I am an RHIA, and I shared that before. And at Mayo Clinic, I am bronze and silver level certified through the Mayo Clinic Quality Fellows program. So just a little bit about my career path. Sorry about that. Through the years after I got my 2-year degree and my first credential, like a lot of people, I came out of the program thinking I wanted to do coding, but I forgot my first job as the director of medical records at a nursing home. And it didn't take me very long to realize the nursing home environment was not for me. It is for some people, and I applaud them, but for me, I really like the pace of the acute care setting. So I stuck with that for about a year, and then I took a position as an evening coordinator and coder at a Catholic hospital in Norfolk, Virginia. And I really, really enjoyed that. Again, I came out of the 2-year program thinking I want to be a coder, and I did it. And I enjoyed it for 4 years. And then at the end of that, I realized, I don't think this is what I want to do forever. And that's okay. It's okay if you want to do it forever. It's okay if you don't want to do it forever. But I did want to explore some different things. And so I took some time off from work because I had my first child. And by the time I came back to work, I was in the Jacksonville, Florida area, and I convinced them, it's not on here, but I convinced them to hire me PRN because at the time there was no director and there was no supervisor at the St. Luke's Hospital campus here in Jacksonville. That was the main Mayo Hospital at the time. And in short order, took the medical records coordinator position. We had Joint Commission coming, and it was an opportunity to dive back into full-time work and help St. Luke's get ready for that survey. So I did that for about 1.5 years, and then the supervisor position opened up. We had a director at the time. Her name was Barbara McCarthy-Verts. Many of you may have met her or be familiar with her. She hired me as the supervisor, very eternally grateful for that. And then through the years had the opportunity to just be promoted up to the HIMSS and transcription manager role. In Florida, the HIMSS and transcription director role. And during that period of time of 2012 to 2017, we also did not just have the Florida campus, but we also had leadership over the Waycross, Georgia campus, which was at that time a Mayo Clinic health system site. They have subsequently been turned over, I think it's to HCA. And then we started going through Epic convergence or shared service convergence in preparation for Epic implementation. So about that time that we became a shared service, my title was changed from director to operations manager. And so between 2017 and 2020, we spent a lot of time implementing Epic. It feels like a blur, honestly, at this point. And then in 2020, Barbara Verts retired, and I applied and was offered the HIMSS administrator role. And so that brings you up to speed. This is where I'm at presently, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this new role and enjoying the new challenges it brings to me, and looking forward to what we do in 2022 as a HIM services department. So on this, I'm not going to read it all to you over to the right hand in the gray area, but just some of the qualifications to be an administrator for health information management are listed there. But for me, on the left-hand side, I put some words together that I felt really fit this job. There's just principles of HIM. We need to always be honoring those principles of what it is to be an HIM professional, and what are those principles that we, as the record custodian, need to ensure that the medical record adheres to. And we do have governing bodies and committees that have oversight of us, but it is the HIM professionals looking at what are the things, it's the education you're getting, it's the things you bring to the table, the things that you've learned that help you remember how to guide an organization to ensure that the medical record is maintained in the right way and in the right fashion. So in my role, I use a lot of agility, strategy. You have to be flexible, responsibility for the budget. You want to bring values. You want to make sure that all the work that you're doing is value added. We deal with a lot of emerging technology and trying to stay ahead of it. So we try to be proactive, not reactive. I think we're still a lot of times reactive to the technology, and we want to start in 2022 figuring out how to be more strategically proactive. When it comes to staff, you want the humility, you want the ability to listen, you want to be that good leader, you want to display your passion and just that mentorship. So there's a lot that comes with this role. But I have to tell you, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And these are some of the words when I talk to my leaders, these are some of the words that I truly want to pass on to them. So in 2021, the first thing out of the gate was, I want this 2021 to be a year of accountability. And I want it to be a year of kindness. So it really came down to, if you expect things from your staff, then what do you expect from your supervisors, and what do you expect from your managers? And we have to hold each other accountable at every level. And as we're doing it, we need to do it with kindness. And that passion, that humility, that integrity. And so just a little bit about my role and some of the things I stand for. So for this role, it does require a credential. It requires a bachelor's degree in health information management and a master's degree in health-related science, health administration, or business administration. To be the administrator of HIM, historically, you didn't have to have the credential, but we found that the value is there. In order to lead this section of health information management, who better to lead it than somebody that has that credential? And so it is now a requirement, and it was when I applied for the role as well. You have to have 5 to 10 years of middle or senior management experience, and just knowledge of Joint Commission standards, HIPAA regulations, CMS, and state and federal statutes. Again, being that expert in HIM. The favorite part of my role is demonstrating to our staff that they are our most valuable assets. So again, that accountability, things like kindness, but also making sure you do their appraisals and giving your staff their time as you go through that process. Don't limit the time you spend with your staff. So we really want to accomplish this through mentorship, accountability, and kindness. You'll hear me say that a lot. And in my office, or at least in my old office, there was this sign that hung next to the door, because nice matters. And I believe that in my soul, that no matter what you have in front of you, we need to be nice. We need to be kind. We need to get the work done, but you can do it in a way that demonstrates that value. So some of the improvement opportunities that we're truly working on for this year involve right sizing our staff. What we've recognized is that we are understaffed in some areas, we're overstaffed in other areas. So how do we get that fixed? And so we're working through that. I'm not sure if many of you know this, but trying to hire people right now is hard. During the COVID pandemic, it changed a lot in terms of people wanting to come to work, and especially coming to work on site. So even if you're right now, we're struggling with getting people that want to work on site at medical record pickup windows, for instance. They don't want that patient-facing interaction. It's a little scary. But 97% or more of our staff are teleworkers and work at home. And the market right now for staff is competitive. So we're up against other big, all around the nation, other big organizations who are also trying to hire staff. And so right now it's very much a employees market. They can pick and choose where to work. And so hiring is an issue right now. And also for Mayo Clinic, it's further an issue, because what we recognized here recently is we don't want the high school graduate anymore. We want the person that has the credential or has the experience in HIM. HIM is not about filing paper anymore. It's about really needing that person at least that's had the 2-year degree education that understands the basics of HIM. And so, and the importance of HIM. And so when you add that credential requirement into an already tight market, hiring is problematic. We are prevailing with our remote positions, but on-site is still a challenge. Some of the things we're dealing with right now are, I'm not sure how much you've learned about the 21st Century Cures Act, but it's really an information blocking is really speaking to the government saying this, what we HIM professionals have always known, that the information in the medical record belongs to the patient. Sometimes as physicians or an organization kind of gets in the middle of it, they think, oh, the patient doesn't really want to know about this, or they don't really want to know about that. The government has come forward and said, you don't get to decide that. If you block information from the patient via their portal or any other method that they're entitled to, then you can be fined. And so this is just rolling out. I'm actually very grateful for this regulation because I think it really supports what HIM professionals have known for years, which is, again, this information belongs to the patient. And we might as well push it through the portal, because if you come to medical records, if you come and ask for your medical record, we're going to give you the information. And so it's really breaking down some of those barriers of not giving the patients their information through their portal and truly allowing them to have it. Now, there are some exceptions for if you think there's potential harm to the patient, or the patient has said, I really don't want you to push this through to my portal because I want it to remain private. If there's some technical infeasibilities for getting it into the portal, there are some reasons that are under the Secures Act where we can not provide it via the portal, but ultimately we want to provide it during the portal. So we're working our best to ensure that we're not further blocking information. And then we have a Journey to Paperless project. And really it's multiple layers. It's really a program and there's multiple projects under it. One of the things it supports is HIM Stage 7, and it's really about how do you stop pushing paper around. And so e-delivery of documents to HIMS from whether it's the nursing unit or the clinical procedural area or where have you. HIM Stage 7 says that the scanned images need to be available within 24 hours. Well, if we wait for rounds and we wait to bring it back and people picking stuff up, we need to stop this old rounding processes that we do. We need to move into a new environment, which is we have the technology. Let's start e-delivering it to HIMS. HIMS then picks it up in a queue and we then index it. And so here at Mayo Clinic, we've started that work. We successfully were passed our survey for HIM Stage 7 this last May. But it was successful because we started e-delivery. HIMS scanners are no longer truly on site except in rare situations. And we do get everything e-delivered to us for indexing and inclusion in the medical record. The other big one that we are getting ready to start working on is outside material. And what we've learned is, and I'll just share some information that kind of hopefully will not blow your mind too bad, but 75% of what HIMS staff index is outside material. If you ask the practice what percentage of that outside material they use, it's probably less than 1%. So that's a lot of FTE indexing a lot of material that the practice doesn't want. And why do they not want it? Because we scan in everything that we receive, even if we receive it 2 or 3 or 4 times. So one of our projects this year is to say we've got to stop that. That's poor behavior. We need to stop it. And we need to think about what workflows are going to work better on the front end to say this is truly what we need to scan in because this is what the practice needs to care for that patient. There are other avenues for receiving outside material, like we use Epic, so we have Care Everywhere. We can look at other and pull from other EMRs that also are on Epic. So why would we pull it and also scan it? So a lot of work getting ready to happen in that outside material area. And I think ultimately over the years, what's happened is we continue to do the same processes that we did in the paper world in an electronic environment. So we need to stop that because as you advance your technology and you advance how you do things, this is one area that has not advanced and it's still very much stuck in the 1990s, and we need to get it into the century. One of the things we've done that we're super excited about is we've consolidated in the Midwest. We had over 30 warehouses where paper medical records were stored. And we now have them in 2 warehouses in the Rochester, Minnesota area. We're also looking about whether we can move our Florida and Arizona records there. And we also have 1 warehouse still remaining in, or 2 warehouses still remaining in Wisconsin, and we're trying to consolidate them as well. So when you think about the staff it takes to man that many warehouses, over 30, and you think about the logistics of people having to go there and pull records, it's being able to consolidate them to support release of information and other needs. It's been huge. It's been huge. We've been able to consolidate staff, resources, and it's just nice to know that we, you think about the snowstorms and stuff in the Midwest. We've truly been able to take down some of the barriers we had during those storms, and really know that we've got people at one warehouse that can, or two warehouses that can truly do the work that used to have to occur at 30. And we're continuing to evaluate processes for value add. And what does that mean? It's kind of back to my statement before, where we tend to continue to do the same process, or we would take our paper process and figure out how we're going to shove that into an electronic environment, or use technology to get the same outcome. And it really comes down to, we need to think differently. And are we doing things that we've always done, but what's the value in it? So it's really taking a step back and saying, let's evaluate what we're doing, who's using it, what's the ultimate value. And in some cases, we may not have to continue some processes, or we may change how we do it. But it's truly taking that step back and understanding, are we just doing the same old thing because we've always done it that way? Because that's, I don't know, is that the definition of insanity? I don't know. I might have to think about that. But we really truly, we want to take some time and evaluate that. So then the other big area for improvement is just leadership succession planning. Always looking to, are we bringing in the right people so that one day, when I'm ready to retire, there's somebody that can fill and step into my seat, and at every level. So assistant supervisors, supervisors to managers, managers to directors, directors to administrators. So just looking at that at all levels to say, are we setting up our house in such a way that we're bringing in the talent, we're retaining the talent, we're promoting the talent, and really making sure that we're doing a good job there. So I feel like I got through this presentation pretty quickly. I think that's it. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute, and I'd really love to hear if you've got questions. I'm very passionate about HIM, and I would totally love to hear your questions if you have some.
Well, first, I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. This was really beneficial, and I'm grateful for you and your leadership. For those that don't know, Patty was my manager for a period of time, and I just thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back to Mayo after I had stayed home with my children for a while. So it's been quite the journey, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So I do want to open it up to our students, and any questions that you have. You can feel free to put them in the chat if you wish, or you can unmute yourself and speak up. Any questions out there?
Before they do that, Shirley, I just want to thank you, because I think it was your example at some point in my life. You were an inspiration with going back to school and just staying on the track while you worked and you raised children. And I said, if Shirley can do this, I can do this. So thank you.
Well,
thank you for your inspiration to me through the years.
I appreciate that. Any questions out there?
Come on, there's got to be one. Is there something about HIM you've always wanted to know? I feel like between Charlene and me, we might be able to answer that.
I have a question. It's me, Melissa.
Hey, Melissa.
Hi. So I'm just totally blown away. Well, with two things actually. The outside material, I didn't realize we were scanning in that much, and only 1% was actually being used in the actual chart, right, Patty? Is that correct? Did I hear that correct?
It is, because providers, there's so much out there, they kind of give up. Melissa. They look at so much out there and so much they have to wade through. I'm looking for one thing and I have to wade through, I don't know, I might be exaggerating, but 1,000 pages, I give up. I want you to make it simpler for me. And by the way, you scanned it like 4 times. So how could you stop doing that, please? Because that's just annoying too. I'm being very transparent and honest here.
Gotcha. Wow. Also, with the Cures Act, I'm just so with schooling and all like that, I'm just so, like it's it's just stuck in my head that the actual facility owns the chart, the medical information. So now with this Cures Act, it's saying that the patient is now the owner, the actual owner, right? Is
So
that what it?
Yeah, what the Cures Act is saying is what HIM professionals always knew. So the information in the medical record belongs to the patient. It's their information. But the actual record, the responsibility for maintaining the physical record or the electronic record, that falls to the organization.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's clear. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think it's just kind of like when HIPAA came around, right? We always knew you had to keep things confidential. We kind of thought it was kind of sad that HIPAA had to outline it for everybody else that these are the standards you have to abide by. And I kind of felt the same way with the Cures Act, which is, of course, you shouldn't block the patient. And guess what? If they came to one of our pickup windows, we were going to give it to them. We were going to give them the information because we can't not by law. And so the information blocking law really just speaks to it, on that many organizations think they're doing the patient a favor and not overwhelming them. But at the end of the day, they could still come and get it. And so this really helps us align what we should do in both platforms.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Melissa. I'm actually grateful. Like I said, I'm grateful for this regulation because I think it forces everybody to realize we're already doing this. Could you get on board?
Hi, I'm Katie. I have a question.
Sure. Hi, Katie.
When I go to a doctor's office, most of the time, the doctor's inputting stuff on a tablet.
Mm-hmm.
My current doctor puts everything on paper.
Mm-hmm.
How does the HIMSS department differentiate, or how do they receive accurate information from paper?
So I guess what I would say, Katie, is since I'm not familiar with the doctor, there's different methodologies the doctors choose. You've got some doctors who just choose old habits. And so it could very well be that doctor's jotting down his notes and then he's going to go to a computer and enter it all after you're out of the room, versus the doctor who does it while you're in the room. So that could be part of it. That could be one explanation. If they're a smaller physician's office, I mean, I guess it's possible they're scanning stuff in. I don't know the situation specifically. My guess is they're going back to the computer and they're entering it after you've left the office, because there are still some diehards that they got to write it down first.
Right. I'm just wondering if there's, for example, if the doctor gives it to the nurse to transcribe, how much of that information is getting in there accurately.
So when it's all said and done, you can use a scribe, you can use a transcription service. But when it's all said and done and that note's been prepared, whether the doctor self-entered it, the transcription typed it, the nurse scribed it in, that physician or that provider is required to sign it. And when they sign it, they're saying it's accurate. There is an expectation that they're reviewing it and that they're, by their signature, they're saying this is exactly correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I understand this is kind of, my name is Michael. Hello.
Hey, Michael.
I have just a quick question to something that's always bothered me. I've been a back patient. I was in an accident when I was 14, so I've had back pain my whole life.
Yep.
Every time I get a reading for a new doctor on a disc or something, it's impossible for me to see what it is. Is there a public source now with the CARES Act where I can actually see what's on those discs?
So that's a great question, Michael. And first of all, I'm sorry you had to kind of go through that and you had that accident. But what I would say is that yes. And I'm saying that hesitantly, but the goal is that imaging is phase 2 of information blocking. It is phase 2. And what Mayo and other organizations are trying to figure out is how do we deliver this through the portal, not only for the patient, but in a format that is diagnostically, the quality that is for diagnostic purposes for even other care providers at other facilities, right? Because we can exchange information through HIEs. So part of this is, as we move forward, this has always kind of been that, it's just been a bugger. I don't know how else to say it, because unless you have the right equipment, it's really hard for you to upload it and for you to see it. Whereas they have specialized equipment in doctors' offices to upload DICOM and other type of imaging. But part of this is really, we want to be able to deliver to you in your portal. And we want to be able to transmit it through HIEs or health information exchanges. So I think you're going to start seeing that get better. I'm just not sure it's going to happen overnight.
Okay, and hopefully as part of this, it's so I won't have to literally carry these discs back in. Okay, excellent. Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, and we're using a couple of different vendors like Ombra and different vendors to say, can we, if our patient logs into their portal, can we have it display in a way that the patient can see it, but they don't have to log into Ombra as well. We want it to be like a single sign-on. You sign into our portal and it automatically does some magic on the back end. And I'm just using that word magic very loosely, but it does magic on the back end with the technology so that you can pull up that image and you can see it right from your portal.
Okay, all right. And yeah, new technology is kind of magic, so.
Yeah, I don't want to make any false promises. I think this is still a work in progress, but I think that this is part of what we're trying to achieve. And the quality that you would get may not be the same quality the provider would get for diagnostic purposes. So how do we match that up? How do we match that up?
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate the presentation as well.
I have another question.
Sure.
It's Melissa. So Patty, what's next for you after this? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm thinking retirement, Melissa, at some point. Oh. I don't know. You know, when I was hired into this role, I was asked a question, and it took me by surprise, but I was asked the question by my boss at the time. She said, so if I retire, which by the way, she retired. If I retire, have you ever considered a position outside of HIM? And, you know, I never really had, because I just have such a passion for HIM. And I just said, you know, if I ever felt I could be successful and I could add value, then the answer would be yes. And so I don't know, Melissa, I feel like I've been in this role for a year. I'm not sure I'm ready to wrap my head around it's time to change. But I think that's the answer I would still give, which is, as long as you find passion and joy and you feel like you're making a difference, I think I would accept another role. But I'm not planning on going anywhere for a little while, because I've only been in this role a year, just saying.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Patty.
Melissa, should I ask that question to you?
No. I don't know. I was just looking at your, where you come from, and I've worked with you, and it's just, it's inspiring to me. So I don't know if I want to ever get to where you're at, but, it just motivates me to just keep going and keep pressing on.
Good. Very good. Someone asked me, there was an interview not too long ago, and they said, if you could go back and talk to your 21-year-old self, what would you tell yourself? And so I asked each of you to think about that too. But what I said was, I would tell my 21-year-old self not to limit myself, because when I came out of the 2-year program, I just had it in my mind that I wanted to be a coder, and I loved coding. Don't get me wrong, I loved coding, but I limited myself. I didn't think about other possibilities. And so what I would say is, don't limit yourself. And the other thing I would tell my 21-year-old self, well, I said, don't be lazy, keep going, don't stop your education. So I say that to all of you on this call, because I waited a significant amount of time. And so that would be advice I would give each of you. The sky's the limit. You pick your own destiny, and education helps you get there.
I had a question for you, Patty.
Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for sharing this. It's been very inspiring, and I really enjoyed just seeing your pathway and the different things that you've done, and the things that you've taught so many of us. So one of the things that I was wondering for myself was, like, for my children and the adolescent record, like, how has that impacted HIMSS as a whole? Because I know when they turned, I guess it was teenagers, then it was like we lost the whole portal process, went to the children. And so, like, anytime I send messages, I send like through my kids. And so how does that work? And what's the process of how, what should we be doing, and how do we handle all that?
So Robin, that's a really great question. So, and it's one of those things that's tricky. So when you have teenagers, there are certain things teenagers have protected rights for, right? And I'm not sure I could even give you a percentage of how many teenagers that actually is applicable to. Mm-hmm. But because we need to protect the rights of the teenagers that it is applicable to, we have to limit what we show in the portal. So teenagers who have been who have given birth, or their sexually transmitted diseases or other things, that there's just caveats to whether it goes to the parent or not. There are things that a teenager can consent for treatment for themselves. They're not emancipated, but, like, for instance, if the teenage girl has a baby, for the purposes of having that baby, those are things she consents for, right? And those are things that she has to provide you authorization to have access to. So to protect the whole, we have to limit what the parents can see. Now, there are some extenuating circumstances for children with special needs or handicaps, where we can put an order in and open up that portal wider, because the parents need that kind of involvement. Well, what I would tell you is, even though you can't see it on the portal, there is still a pathway for you to get the information you need through release of information.
Okay.
So you can still come through, and they will look at the record, and if you've signed the authorization, because your child is a minor, obviously you can sign that authorization, and as long as there's no information there that's protected, sure, they can still release it to you. The last thing I'll say, Robin, and this is just, don't take this as criticism, but if you're going to send through a message through somebody else's portal, make sure you're indicating that it's you.
Right. Okay. Yes. I usually always identify, yes, mother, in the name.
Yes, because you don't want the provider that receives it, or whoever's on the receiving end, if you don't, they will assume it's the child.
And so, I'm sorry, what was that again? They would restrict it
if you don't indicate that you're the one sending it through that portal, they will assume it's the child.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, thank you so much for the guidance on that. Very interesting.
Now, I know that some minors will share their password with their parents. And that's the other thing. I think it's to take the pressure off, because there's just so much we want to go into that portal to protect those minors that are in those protected situations.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Well, thank you so much for that clarification and the guidance on that. I'm sure it's ever evolving every day with so many different things and challenges that you guys come in contact with. So thanks again for all your assistance.
Yeah, it's how you stay compliant with the law. We want to give the information to parents who deserve the information, though.
Gotcha. Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent question, Robin, because I've actually wondered that myself. I have a teenager who's a patient, and have tried to navigate her portal, and it can be challenging for a parent.
Well, honestly, I'm a mom too, and I just, as much as I know what the right answer is, I don't like it. Just, I want what I want when I want it,
Sure. Well, and even like when they're getting like COVID testing or whatever, it's, they're always like, oh, mom, the test came through. And I'm like, okay, great. What did it read? And they always have it on their devices or whatever, but it's just like kind of challenging to know the lines on that. And like you say, the law, because you're like, well, what is okay for me to see? And, even whenever they went to like The OB office, it was like I had to countersign all this stuff, and it was like very overwhelming because they were like asking my kid all this stuff, and she's like, "Mom, I don't even know what they're asking me," and I was like, "I don't know how to handle this." So
Yeah.
it's a whole new set of challenges, I guess.
It's tricky because you are responsible for the insurance and the bill and all that. But when it comes to the actual information, there are certain things that are available for you, like immunizations and things of that nature. It's just a very limited set of data that you can see once they turn 13. I think it's 13, right? 13, I think. 12 or 13.
Yeah.
So
Very interesting. Well, thank you. Thanks, Dr.
No.
Banta.
Any other questions? Patty, I have to say you took me down memory lane with the reference to the ART. So for those of you who don't know, the predecessor certification to the RHIT was the ART, the Accredited Records Technician. And I did a HEMA's correspondence program back when in the early 90s when they'd send you the physical books by mail, right? And you would do the work actually in the book and mail it back each month. And yeah, a lot has changed.
Yeah, I'm old school. I still have my Huffman's. I still have it. It's really dated. I pulled it out in, about a year or so ago, and I looked at it. I was like, "Whoa, this is so, 1980s." it was nothing that much relevant in there, but the same principles about confidentiality and protection of information. And
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of interesting to go down memory lane a little bit with that Huffman's book.
And I loved your advice to your 21-year-old self. I would have told myself the exact same. I started out wanting to be a transcriptionist and went through the certification program to do that and did it. But again, there's so much more you can do. It's all about keeping an open mind.
It is, there is, and it is. And so I would ask you each, you don't have to be forthcoming, but ask yourself that question, don't limit yourself. That's the best advice I can give you, is just keep on keeping on, be open to possibilities. Don't let something new scare you off. You might find that you have a true passion for it once you understand it. So.
Okay, any final questions?
Well, if anybody happens to think of any later, I'm happy to answer those via email. Charlene, you can send them on, but just thank you for everybody's time today. This has been great.
Yeah, this has been a treat. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this afternoon. And thank you everyone for being here as well. I wish you all a good evening. And remember that we do this the first Wednesday of every month at the same time. So mark your calendars and plan to join us again. All right, have a good afternoon. Thank you.